There's a clue in that, isn't it? Isn't there, in the whistle that you can't stop hearing? You wouldn't choose to have that continually just going in your head. If you could choose to stop it, you certainly would. But if that is on repeat, that's what's happening. You can't choose otherwise, even though you'd like to. And probably, it's just another story, but probably the more effort you make to try and get rid of it, the more it's there. This is the simplest message you could ever hear. It's just that what's happening isn't in your control or anyone else's. You don't get to choose. Probably more accurate to say there isn't a chooser, but if there's a feeling of choice, that's what's happening. If it feels like you're choosing, that's what's happening. If you feel like there's no choice, that's what's happening. There isn't a choice about choice or no choice. And that can feel really disconcerting. It can feel so threatening to the one who has tried so hard to stay in control, to stay on top of life, to manage life. And the wonderful news is that life doesn't need managing. Because there never was a manager. There never is a manager. And if you've come this far and you've made a lot of effort to stay on top of your life, to manage your life, then you're probably ready for a redundancy package. That's what this message really is. It's saying you can retire. Enough's enough. Enough trying. Enough effort. It really hasn't brought you anywhere. I know self says otherwise. It says it's brought you here. But there was no path to get here. There's no getting here. And there's no getting away from here. There really isn't a journey. And as me, I'm always obsessed with my journey. Looking back at all the mistakes I've made, and of course all the successes, and putting into practice whatever new method I've heard suggested that could help my journey towards, I don't know what. I can make the goal anything, but there is no goal. The goal is just imagined. And I know it can seem that this is moving forward, but it's not moving. The movement is illusory. So I can move forward in an imagined future, and I can move back in a remembered past. But they're not real. There is no knowing what's absolutely real, what's actually real. And yet this completely known. I mean, that's a complete paradox. You can't not know this. There isn't anything to learn about this. This is already completely known. That's the complete and wholeness that you've desired so much, and it never went anywhere. It doesn't, it's never, you can't escape from it. You know, that's why Tony has phrased the open secret is so great. It is great. This so-called secret of liberation, this mystical Neverland, this wonder of enlightenment, this wonder of awakening, never left, couldn't leave. And really paradoxically, it never appears either. The appearance is the appearance that it that you didn't have it and then you got it. That becomes nonsensical. It is nonsense. There's only this. This isn't a game. This isn't an attainment. This isn't for anyone. This is already. It's just that the one who felt separate from it felt that it could get back to it. Well, never left. There's no leaving here, nor arriving. Just seeming, coming and going. And so to self, this whole message can feel like a disappointment. And most seekers reject it. Because it's saying you can't get what you want. You can't get to where you want to be. Because there isn't another place. There isn't another time. There isn't another space. There's no deeper. There's nothing hiding. Because Tim as a seeker, I always felt that I was missing something. There was something hidden that I'm not seeing. There was something more that I haven't quite got yet. You know, that I can almost touch it, but not quite. A sense of something else. There isn't anything else. There couldn't be. This is already the all. This is already completely full of everything and completely empty. This is its own resolution. This is the resolution of all opposites. They all appear here. There isn't somewhere else for them to appear. And so they're looking for them elsewhere, in another time, in another place. Is the illusion. That is what self is. Self is the illusion of there is more. There is another time. There is higher, there is lower, there is deeper. There isn't. There simply isn't. But this isn't getting what you want. This is getting what there is. And of course, self doesn't want, occasionally, self wants what is. Everything is just as you want it to be. God, those times are rare, aren't they? How often has everything been just as you wanted it to be? The arrogance of self is immense. That life should appear how I want it to appear. It's really laughable. This is a cosmic joke. Now, you may have a fantasy that without me, everything will be perfect as well, because I'm the problem. That's clear. You may have got that clear already. I am is the problem. And without I am, everything will be perfect. Well, it will be perfectly as it is. That's the perfection. So this is always perfectly being exactly what it is. Now that's the only perfection. The perfection that you have sought, which is a personal perfection, of course, is an absolute fantasy. And a dreadful arrogance that life should appear how you want it to appear, in accordance with your preferences, in accordance with your wishes, your hopes, your dreams. So this isn't about the fulfillment of dreams. This is quite brutal and ruthless in its annihilation of hopes and dreams. In the annihilation of fairy tales. Don't get me wrong, you can still tell a fairy tale, but there's no chance of you believing it anymore. Any story about what is to come will be just that, will be just another fairy story told to children, adult children, told by adult children to the other adult children, in the collusion that selves play with each other, that there is a future where everything could be better. In fact, if you listen to politicians or religious leaders, then that's the fairy story they peddle. And there is a loss. There is a loss and a disappointment in the end of stories having any reality other than being a story. It can feel, well, disillusionment is a good word. I mean, if you're coming to these meetings, then you're looking for disillusionment, but you don't want it. Not really. Self never wants that. You can tell yourself a story that you do, but take all hopes and dreams away and see if you like it. Probably not. You can laugh, but there will be sadness as well. Deep sadness. You've been living on hopes and dreams up until, you know, as me, that's what me lives on. I've been living on fairy stories and fantasies. And this is about the harsh reality that life is just as it is. Of course it is. But I say it's harsh, and yet it's incredibly beautiful, because whilst I was living in some romantic future ideal, I was missing the only life there is. I'm missing it. I'm saying this isn't it. I'm saying it is somewhere else. Or I'm saying it is hidden, that it's, and I can't quite see it. It's bullshit. There's nothing hidden. What we're talking about is the most mundane, the most ordinary, the most down to earth, the most earthy, the most human. I have no sense that what I'm speaking about is spiritual in any way. Because the myth, the greatest fantasy, this is only how I see it, but the greatest fantasy is that spiritual is separate from what we call material, the mundane, the earthy, the human, as if that isn't spiritual and spirituality is somewhere else. It's not true. There is no separation. And of course, you've had glimpses of this. I know. You've had moments where that becomes obvious. And then you tell a story that it was in that experience. So it was in that place. It was with that person. It was with that landscape. It was in that special time and place. There is no special time and place other than stories we tell about time and place. All place, all time, we make up. We are the storytellers of time and place. No place, no person, no human being, no beings are more spiritual, more holy, more oneness, more emptiness than any other. Everything that we call things is equally being exactly what it is and simultaneously completely empty of what it is. And it seems that I'm guessing, I'm only guessing, that's normally what people are referring to with spirituality, is the emptiness. Well, the emptiness and the fullness are not two. They're not, there's no separation between them. Everything is being what it is, including the body that you've called yourself, is just being exactly what it is, under the illusion that you're inside it, running the show. There's no one running the show. And don't get me wrong, that can really be terrifying if it becomes obvious that you're just not running the show at all, that is inside, what you've taken to be full of you inside is actually empty as hell. There's nothing. Nothing is, I mean, it is, for most human beings who experience that, there is abject terror, dread. Whilst there is a sense of me falling into it, or being dragged into it, or being sucked into it, or however it's experienced, I don't think there's any end to the ways that emptiness might be experienced. And really, I think a big part of the motivation to speak about this is to just say there's nothing to fear. Emptiness is benign. I don't mean it's good, but it's essentially neutral. It's no value and all values. I was always afraid of the dark. I don't know about you. As a kid, I was terrified of the dark. Truly, really, truly terrified. I had to have the light on. I was a teenager before I could have just the hall light on. That's how bad my fear of the dark was. I was well into my teens. And it seems obvious now that the darkness was just symbolic of not knowing, you know, of the monsters that lurk in the darkness. And maybe it's not for me to say, but the darkness is utterly benign. Emptiness doesn't have, it's not malevolent. There is no malevolence in the darkness. The darkness is no different from the light. Light and dark are not actually two. And it's, I fear, certainly here, it was the darkness that was feared, and the darkness was not knowing. The darkness was the fear of falling into not knowing. And if you think about deep sleep is the great darkness, and the falling asleep we fear in darkness, but actually in the darkness, when there is no you in the darkness, there's just darkness. Isn't it bliss? Don't we all long for deep sleep? One of the worst things about anxiety, existential fear particularly, is the inability to sleep. And insomnia is a torture, because there's no break for the self, there's no rest for the self. And deep sleep is utterly benign. And in a way, you could say this is deep sleep awake. So in deep sleep, there's just complete emptiness, and this waking life is just is exactly the same, completely empty, but it's also full. Whereas deep sleep, what do we know of it? We know nothing of it. There's no knowing. And here there's knowing. Awake, there's knowing. The illusion of knowing. It appears that I can know what's going on. It appears that I can name all the objects. And all that's just a story. But a story about, I just know how much, how beautiful deep sleep is. And yet I know nothing of it at all. Nothing. And yet it's wonderful. I don't even know how I know it's wonderful, because I don't know anything about it. But I know every human being I ever speak to longs for it, longs for rest, longs for absence, actually, you know, longs for that absence of that, the need to control, the need to make effort. Resting in peace. There's a clue on the gravestones. Ah, okay. So if you've got any questions or you'd like to share anything, then by all means do. Let me see what's in the chat.
Tim?
Hi, who's that?
Hi. I don't know if you can hear me. Ellen here.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi. I'm trying desperately to get in today to the meeting, but there was some kind of problem with the date or something. But I finally figured it out. Found your website, so. So hello.
Sorry, what was the problem?
I don't know. It said that every time I clicked on the link,
Yeah.
which said it was happening now, I got a message saying that the meeting was for November 9th, 2020.
Yeah, because that was my mistake. Sorry, Ellen.
Oh, okay, that's all right. So
apologies. Yeah.
I persisted, and I think I missed most of what you said. But it's interesting what you were just saying when I finally did get in, because my granddaughter has to have a lot of surgeries, and
Right.
the last time I usually take her to the to the hospital, and the last time I did, as we were going in, she said, "Oh, I just can't wait to be put under."
Yeah.
And I said, I know that's the only time you have a break from yourself. And she said, yes, it's emptiness.
Oh.
And it was so interesting, because I just, she had some awareness of that being the time when she was free of everything,
Yeah.
Yeah, and yet yeah. So it's interesting, because that's exactly what she was saying.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Everyone longs for a break from themselves. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, David.
No, nice to see you again. This is a bit eccentric, I think, I'm going to say. It's great that we gather together on these occasions. I think there's a special thing about it, very much so. But the business of ring fencing non-duality is a nonsense, isn't it? We know that. And
yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah.
All I can do is talk theoretically. There's nothing special going on here. But for me, and I'm sure many others, it's so much in popular culture, this thing. I'm thinking, I'm an ex-musician. Pop music is absolutely saturated in it, completely from top to bottom. And at least when we look at these, like Dylan, for example, lies that life is black and white. What a line. No reason to get excited from along the Watchtower. Apparently the thief's supposed to be Jesus. And Johnny,
Yeah.
I mean, listen to Shine by Joni Mitchell. It should be the non-dual anthem. She probably doesn't even, maybe never even.
Sorry, what is that? Which?
Shine. It's a litany of opposites.
Oh, yeah.
Underpinned by a light. It's just fucking amazing, you know.
Yeah.
At least when we look at these people, we don't project all that, as Paul Hederman would say, that loving gaze nonsense onto them. We know that, you know, they're sex addicts, heroin addicts, you know, they've had 10 lives, etc., etc. And yet they're coming away with this stuff. In fact, you've got to be slightly bonkers to do it in the first place. There's a neurosis attached to it somehow. And I get a lot of relief from it. I mean, really, it's long before I got into this in this more kind of formal way.
Yeah.
It's that kept me going. Billie Eilish, for goodness sake, you know, when we fall asleep, where do we go?
Yeah.
Go to the top of the class.
It's great. Yeah.
Psychiatric case, you know.
Well, isn't it incredible that, you know, it's not even the majority of humanity, virtually all of humanity dismisses the fact that they disappear every night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, how is that overlooked? You know, it's not even talked about. Like you say, only by hippie songwriters on LSD or non-duality speakers. They're the only ones who mention it.
But the great thing
But it's bloody obvious to everyone, really.
The great thing about these folk is you can whistle along and tap your toes to it. You know, there's never, you know, it's not, I keep coming back to Paul Hederman, but I love that. He's got great disdain for the loving gaze, he calls it. You know?
Yeah, he has, yeah.
It maybe has its place. So anyway, I'm just sharing something, you know.
No, that's nice. Thank you.
Where it is in popular culture, you know, and where you would expect it to be. If this thing is everywhere, you would expect to hear it in pop songs.
Yeah.
And I'm very drawn to John Lennon. I mean, come on.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Most pop songs are just about romantic love, of course.
Oh yeah.
Especially lost love. You know, that's a favorite.
But then you'll get people like Leonard Cohen who can write a kind of what superficially looks like a love song, but it's just non-duality from top to bottom, really, about this desire for a woman, who is God, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of craft, you know, and smuggling that stuff through, and you're tapping your toe quite happily, you know.
Anyway, with any idea, maybe it's filtering in.
Yeah, it was never
very
me.
Subversive.
It was never me. It was always you. Leonard Cohen songs. It's wonderful. You know, it was never me. Anyway, enough said. Just sharing.
Oh, thanks, David. No, it's nice.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great to see you again.
And you. Hi, Michael.
Hello. Do you personally long for a break from the self?
Do I?
No.
No, but I haven't forgotten the longing, though. Oh yeah, I have. It's yeah. I think it was so intense for so long in the story. Yeah, it's not forgotten. I haven't forgotten the pain of that. Excruciating pain of that. I will say this isn't talking about the end of longing either. No. You don't need a self to long. I think it's a natural human condition. Yeah. But life without my longing, just longing is different than my longing. It's really, I find it the hardest thing to talk about, really. Sorry, that's my phone again. A different phone this time. Yeah, it's hard to talk about. It's yeah.
Oh yes. Can I ring you back, George? Tin on the meeting?
It's my mum. She's on the phone.
Okay.
So-
Lovely internet news. Thank you,
I'll
George.
just let mum finish.
Sorry, Tim.
That's all right.
Sorry, everybody.
Can't help it. It's your,
Georgie,
it's your house.
You had some lovely flowers today, sis.
Right. We're still in the meeting, mum. Thanks. Oh dear. You can't, mum says you can't make it up, can you? You couldn't. I mean, if you wrote it, no one would believe it.
No, like this.
It's like Monty Python.
Oh shit! I was going to say something profound about the longing there, but that's been blown out of the water by my mother. Oh dear.
Perfect.
I think the longing might be just about the same, thinking about it, Michael. And yet, because I'm not trying to not have the longing, I think it was the effort, not that there was something wrong. You know, that it felt it felt that there must be something wrong because of the longing. Whereas I just think longing is, you know, love's longing for love. What? There's no knowing. I don't know anything about it, if I'm honest. But there's a lot of difference between longing for what I want, and even more longing for what I need in order to feel okay. And I don't know, there is just a longing, a natural longing, it feels. Maybe that's just here. Love's longing for love, I would call it. For itself.
Would you say it has a feeling attached to it?
No. Yeah. Feeling. Ooh, tricky. Feelings. Once we get into feelings are tricky, aren't they? Because we label stuff, we have no idea what it is. You know, I think, you know, that's what we do. So there's these sensations in the body. We call them emotions and feelings, and then we name them as if we know what they are. I mean, there's a hell of a story in itself. I think I could write a book on that. So is it a feeling? Yes. Could you describe it? I don't know if you've, if you've been to a therapist, Aaron, and you go into a great depth about how you feel, and you try and find the words to describe how you feel. In very short time, it gets really confusing. You know, because the difference between, what should we say, longing and love, say, or anger and excitement, say. I mean, trying to find the lines between those is what we do with everything. We try and find lines to delineate and separate life out. Well, this. So, is it a feeling? Yeah, I guess it is. You don't need to know. I don't need to know. But, you know, it's self who wants to know and label everything. Because what self says, by labeling what I say, if I give something a name, then I know it. And I feel so much more comfortable. Just the naming alone. there's a whole process in person-centered therapy which I studied and tried to practice for a while, and it was by this guy Eugene Gendling, and it was all about naming a feeling and getting a handle word. It was all about finding a word, and once you had the word, almost immediately self felt much more, you felt better straight away. Just the word, just the naming of it. And of course that makes perfect sense. That's what self does with life. If I name it, I know it. I've boxed it, and I feel much more comfortable, because what my discomfort is the unknown. And through Tim's life, most of his discomfort has been emotional, and not being able to manage what a therapist might call difficult emotions. But we don't know what emotions are, do we? Do we? Not at all. I mean, they're the most slippery, ephemeral. You can't, there's no getting hold of emotions. And yet, of course, they're absolutely central to being a human being. I mean, you say they run most people's lives. And this message, by the way, isn't anything about managing emotions, handling emotions, or that there's anything wrong with emotions. They are just what they are. But naming them doesn't make any difference. It just seemingly does to me, because I get comfort from knowing. And the illusion is that a name equals knowing. It is shocking if you get a glimpse that the things that you've named that you thought you knew, actually you don't know at all. It can be, if there is a revelation that that simply is a lie, that a name is just a word and the name doesn't mean knowledge at all. If that hits, that can be that can feel devastating. But of course the word isn't knowledge, is it? Other than knowledge of a word. You don't know the thing by the word. Emotion or object, you don't know. I mean, really simply, you'll have heard, you need to taste the orange to, the orange by eating it, not by calling it an orange. Oh, that's all a bit philosophical now. but language is deceptive, is what I mean.
I don't know whether Michael had finished when I butted in. Had he finished?
Yeah, I think so.
Hi there, Tim.
I don't think you butted in, Darren.
Hi, Tim.
What do you think? What do you think of that, Darren? Oh, sorry, is there someone else speaking?
Yeah, Tim, this is Eva speaking.
Hi, Eva.
Hi. I just want to go back to what you said before at the very beginning about the child with the fear of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can say is I'm now 62, and exactly this fear of darkness was what got me searching as a child. So I find myself back now in Toronto after traveling the world. I live in Germany, done so many things looking for the end of the fear from this child, asking desperately. And here I sit in the basement of where it started when I was like 7, 6, I don't know. My dad's dying upstairs. I'm quarantined for 2 weeks alone here. And it's just pathetically desperate. I'm going to lose my work next year. Everything is kind of like, And yeah, I was a seeker, started at 14. I knew I was going to go searching, and that's it, because this fear has just kept me running, restless. And all I can say is I'm fucking desperate.
What
And
were
it
you?
hurts like hell.
Do you still? What were you seeking for, Eva?
Yeah, the answer to suffering, the answer to pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
My own, my parents,
Yeah.
at that time as a child, and it's still that. Hasn't changed. I've done a million things. I can tell you all kinds of stories, incredible stories, but I'm back here again in the
Yeah.
bloody same place where it started.
Wow.
And I don't know, and a seeker, like I say, I think I was a child and it started already.
Yeah. I think we all were. Yeah.
So I can maybe call that arrogant. I would just call it a desperate child.
Yeah. No, I don't mean the seeking's arrogant.
Mm.
I don't mean that. It can be the desperate child. Yeah. Inside every seeker is a scared child. Yeah.
Mm. And so I said, I appreciate your talk so much. It's just wonderful. It's the only, I don't even want to call it a lifeline. I don't know what you call it. It's,
Oh, thanks, Eva.
what else is there left?
No, I know. And and yeah, you can, if you speak about this, you can wonder if it is compassionate or not. So the motivation to speak about this only comes from compassion.
Mm.
And I do doubt it. So don't think that that's not great to hear, Eva. It is.
Well, it really is. It's just wonderful. It's
I mean,
my
because
the only joy.
it's very obvious that I'm not giving you anything, and
I don't know.
and yet you there you are saying that you appreciate it. So obviously it is worth it. It's nice to know it's worth it, because I doubt it all the time. What, what the hell would you speak about it? And I know why I speak about it. It's because it's love. That's why. But
Well, yeah.
you
Well,
know,
it comes through in your way then, whatever.
and the darkness is okay. That's really what I want to say. I really want to say that. From one frightened child to another, that the darkness, there is nothing to fear from the darkness. It's just empty. And emptiness is beautifully okay, really. Yeah. Thanks, Eva.
Thank you.
Tim,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Who's that? Roberta?
Yes.
Hi, Roberta.
Well, hello, and I must say first that you just make my day, plus your mother. I just find you just so pleasant in her. But what I want to ask you,
Funny, you don't know me, Roberta. That's why.
no. Oh,
This is
okay.
Roberta. This is a show. It's all fun.
Okay. Oh dear. Listen.
But as long as you're convinced, it's all good. Go on.
Yeah, okay. The part about the I, the self, or the me that is not in control baffles me. So I don't need to know what is in control.
No.
Or Well, Tim, now, who is driving the car down 185 here?
That is a great question, Roberta.
Okay.
There was, yeah, well, yeah, there's, are you driving, Roberta, down the highway? No, I mean, I actually meant that literally. Do you drive down the highway?
I know, and I'm understanding that I don't know, Tim. I don't know.
No, well,
I don't think.
really, all we're talking about here is that there's a conviction for nearly all human beings. There's a conviction that inside the human being called Roberta is a someone who's in charge, who's steering the car, who's moving the indicators, and who's controlling the feet and pressing the brakes.
It would be me. It would be the me.
Yeah, and if I asked anyone, they'd go, yeah, that's me. Now, of course, here it would be the same, but there's absolutely no, it's just a figure of speech here. Whereas for nearly all human beings, it's not just a figure of speech. That who did that? Oh, it was me. I would say that. In fact, somebody the other day said to me, well, you're not a very good non-duality speaker. You talking about you talk about yourself and what you've done during the day, and you know what you're going to do next week. And yeah, we're not talking about the way in which you speak. This is saying that the conviction that I'm doing what I've called my life can just evaporate and there's no conviction at all. So I can talk about me, but it's just a way of speaking that no one's doing. This called Tim, there's no one doing it. And don't ask me how, Roberta, but it's very obvious there's no one doing anyone else either.
Okay.
So years ago, I went to a meeting, and it was called "Who's Driving the Dream Bus?" which I still love the phrase. It's a lovely phrase. So the whole notion of the conference, it was a conference of non-duality speakers, and it was called "Who's Driving the Dream Bus?" And basically, the conclusion was that there's no driver. There is a seeming dream bus. There is a seeming driver, but he's not doing the driving. You could say the bus is driving itself via a human being. There you go. That's one way of saying it. Life is driving the bus by the use of a human being being the driver, but there isn't a driver inside the human being.
Okay.
I don't think that's very helpful, do you, Roberta?
Well, now it is. It is. I've contemplated this for quite a while, and I finally managed to find myself in this Zoom meeting. It was a tough way to go, let me tell you, but I finally worked it out because I am not computer savvy.
No, nor
But
me,
I
Roberta.
did
But
it.
well, I appreciate you've made the effort. Well done. That sounded condescending. I take it back. No, because I'm pretty shit with computers as well, Roberta.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the message is that there's no one driving the dream bus. The bus is this, you could say, life drives itself. Life is its own driver, or you could say life doesn't need a driver.
That is just so amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
It's well, I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kind of like being in one of those cabs where you don't have to drive.
Oh yeah, they've got those in Milton Keynes now, I think. Driverless cabs, driverless taxis, yeah.
I guess all the vehicles on the road are driverless, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. But I mean, it sounds nonsensical, I know, but it's not at all. It's really, you just don't need, I mean, the self says that without me, I wouldn't be able to do anything. This wouldn't function, you know, I'm doing it all after all. Of course, without me, how the hell would this work? Well, with much less effort, with much less anxiety, with much less fear, with much less worry, just easier, you know. There is only one person that needs yourself. Nobody else will notice. If you stopped appearing right now, no one would notice. And by the way, I'm including the human being that you've called yourself. You wouldn't notice either. That's how superfluous you are. You're just not, yeah, you're not required. Life has no requirement of you. You've imagined yourself. Self creates self. Self is self-created and self-perpetuated in an endless self-referential loop. You can, I mean, I remember this, not recently, but years ago, that there is a moment on waking from deep sleep where you can kind of catch the creation of yourself first thing in the morning, the recreation, the rebooting, you could call it. Self reboots itself. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. There can be a noticing. I mean, it's only a matter of seconds. And then there you are in your story, telling the story of what you need to do today, what you didn't do yesterday, what you need to do better today than you did yesterday, what's important, what you've got to worry about, who you've upset, who you need to upset, and so on. But just prior to that, just prior to your appearance, remember you've been dead all night. Well, you know, for most of it. By dead, I mean you just weren't there, were you? There was just nothing. And then you appear. I really think if only we could talk about that a little bit more. But of course, self never wants to talk about its own disappearance every day, every evening. So this is never really spoken about. This obviousness that self actually dies every day and then is born every morning.
Tim.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, and how it sort of gives up everything that it has or thinks it has. So all of its relationships, everything that's really important to it.
Everything is given up every day.
Even my boy, whose relationship is one of the most important things in the world to me, that's gone.
Everything's gone.
Yeah.
There literally is nothing. There's no knowing. Really, so without knowing, of course, there's no self. And how interesting that all selves long for it. I don't know anyone who doesn't love deep sleep. I mean, with a real love, with a passion. Love that absence. Love that emptiness. And as I said earlier, it seems obvious that this is, so waking is empty and full, whereas deep sleep is just empty. And dream is somewhere in between. Yeah, and emptiness isn't to be feared. And maybe if emptiness is seen as deep sleep is synonymous with that emptiness, the emptiness that I'm speaking of, that we're speaking about, then of course it's obviously not a threat. There's no threat in sleep, is there? It's quite the opposite. It's like just being wrapped in a blanket of nothing. With no one inside the blanket and no blanket. Oh, we're very much on the emptiness this evening. Has anyone else got a question they'd like to ask? Let's see. I'll just look in the chat. Darren said, who is there to see or love the emptiness? If there was someone to see it, it wouldn't be empty. No. So I think really, I mean, there is no difference, self or no self, because there is no self. I mean, it's hard to emphasize that, but I can't emphasize it enough. This is a change that is no change. So this is a shift that isn't a shift, because the shift from the illusion of self to the non-illusion of self being real isn't really noticeable, other than by the symptoms or the absence of the symptoms that I produced. So what was noticed here was emptiness. I can't emphasize that enough. All I said for weeks and months was how empty everything was. And the emptiness is simply noticed in the absence of me, who filled the emptiness with myself. All my thoughts, all my desires, all my hopes, all my dreams, all my stories, all my judgments, all my shit. No, I'm not saying that shit is absent in the absence of me, but there's a huge difference between shit and my shit. Because shit doesn't really matter. My shit, on the other hand, now fuck, that's important. I need to deal with my shit. I need to get on top of it. I need to work on it. I need to deal with it. Deal with my shit. That's the nature of self. So if you're looking for nirvana, if you're looking for heavenly bliss, unending, you need to go somewhere else, to listen to someone else, because this is not excluding anything. Life is utterly inclusive, other than my demand that it be otherwise. It is only I that has demands that life should be other than it is. And what we're speaking about is that it can seem that the one who demanded that life is different, if not dies completely, at least takes a break, has a lie down, at least gives some respite, rather than constantly demand that life should be how I say it should be. That's why I always talk about the arrogance of self. Now, interestingly, I've said the word arrogance, that's just triggered something. Yesterday, I did this meeting in Bulgaria, not in Bulgaria, a Zoom meeting with Bulgarians, and a lovely young woman said that I sounded arrogant, which she said, I can't decide whether your message, what you're saying, is arrogant or compassionate. I can't decide whether you're arrogant or compassionate, she said. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because of course, I'm definitely both. And this message, of course, can sound arrogant, because it sounds as though, well, there's no more arrogant, to self, there's nothing more arrogant to self than to say self doesn't exist. Self will find that extremely arrogant. But interestingly, without self, there is no difference between humility and arrogance. And I ended up saying, I think, because if you've been on a spiritual path, then of course there's a lot of emphasis on humility on most spiritual paths. And I ended up saying, you do understand humility is highly overrated. And a lot of the most humble people I've ever met are the most arrogant, with immense pride in their own humility. So this might sound arrogant, but it's an empty arrogance if it is. There you go. It's not really, but it is not trying to be humble, you see. This message, if this message sounds humble, then it's probably not the message. Because you're not interested in humility nor arrogance, because they're all for me. It's straightforward, and if it's straightforward and simple and direct, then of course that can come across as, if not arrogant, then forthright. Okay. Scott says, Tim, can we say that peace comes from being liberated from the need for identity, for reality to make sense? Yeah, that would be part of it, I'd say, Scott, yeah. Yeah. A lot of the piece is from the absence of the one who needed for life to make sense. Because a lot of the work that you've been trying to do is to make sense of your life, to work it out. You wanted to work life out, haven't you? It's the nature of self. That's what self needs to do. And all that effort to work it out is so that I feel safe and secure. Because if I can work it out, then I can keep myself safe. Well, you probably, if you're here, you've realized that that's bullshit. And there is absolutely no security in life whatsoever. None. And that, you don't have to accept that, but the complete obviousness of life's utter disinterest for your interests, complete. You could, a complete indifference to you, not even acknowledging your existence. That's the only security. Believe it or not, that is the peace that you've been seeking. That's the rest that you've been seeking from the effort to keep safe, to save myself. And by save myself, I mean, even if you've had a story about it's not saving myself, it really is. So if you've had a story about enlightenment or completion, that is where you've said you will be saved. There's no one to save, is the only security. That's the whole of this message. That's why it's compassionate. You don't need saving because there's no you to save. How wonderful is that? Don't get me wrong, it's a dreadful wonderful. It's terribly wonderful. Life is terribly wonderful. There you are. And this is it. This isn't, you know, you may call this a dream and you can go into some kind of, there's loads of Advaita shit about this just being a dream. Well, you can play that game if you want and, you know, play that, then you're going to find some reality somewhere else. Well, good luck with that. Play that game. It's just another game for self, pretending that there's somewhere else that you're going to get to in some fantasy future. And you could fantasize about an afterlife by all means. Yeah, do that as well. You know, that you're going to get a load of turns at this, and each one you'll get a little bit closer. Well, they they might be seen to be lovely dreams. I don't think they're lovely personally, but they're very popular though. And in the story of humanity, they've been popular for a long time, haven't they? These afterlife stories. Afterlife, what's coming next? Funny, really. Hilarious. Well, when there's nothing already, nothing to come doesn't sound so bad. As this is essentially empty already, as well as being, so this is completely unreal, as well as being totally real, then a future that has nothing in it is not so dreadful. In fact, there's nothing to dread at all. There's nothing to be feared in nothing. It is shocking how benign, and by benign, I don't mean good, but neutral, that nothing is. Of course it is. There's nothing there. Okay. I've done a lot of nothing this evening. Emptiness seeing itself then. Ha, says Scott. Well, it's not even that, because nothing doesn't see anything. There's nothing to see. Nothing to see here. Kelly says, man, I wish I could access that deep, dark sleep. Yeah, I'd wish it for everyone. Deep and dark. Isn't it funny that, of course, self has made up these stories about darkness, being evil, being the enemy of the light. I mean, just religion is just riddled with that shit, isn't it? It's just soaked in that. All popular culture is soaked in it as well. That darkness is evil. Well, light is no more good than darkness. Darkness is no more evil than light. There is no light and dark. Essentially, they're not two. They're not. This isn't two, nor one. So light and dark appear two, but they're not. Sleeping and waking appears two, but it's not. Me and you appear as two, but we're not. Here and there, now and then, this and that. Everything that we use language to separate is an illusion of separation. But language, because we're so, our being is so seeped in language, we're so reliant on language because thoughts are in language, thoughts are in words. Then separation has been, because that's what words do, then self believes it to be real. And of course, the root of all of this comes from the initial separation. And there is only really one separation, and that is I am. From the moment I am, there's separation. And everything else comes from that reality, that conviction that I am separate. I am me. Nothing else is. Nothing else is me. Only me. Everything else is alien to me and a threat to me. I have to constantly be working in order to not feel terrified. Your sense of I am came around 18 months, 2 years old. And so inside, that's who you are. Right in the core of your sense of self is a terrified little child in a world of giants. And most adults that I've met, it doesn't take much if you get to know them to find that terrified little child at the center of their sense of who they are. And self creates endless mechanisms, endless defenses to keep itself safe from being seen as the terrified little child that it is. There's no need. Yeah. Okay, we've just got 5-10 minutes. Has anyone got a question about all that self stuff that I've been talking about?
Tim, Anna in the chat says, it's my second meeting after yesterday. Me wants to hit my head on the wall hearing all this.
Yeah, don't do that, Anna. because you don't need a self for pain. Because somebody said to me, yeah, so if I punched you in the face, there'd be no one to feel it. So I could just punch you in the face or smack you in the face. And I went, oh no, you don't need a self for preservation of the body. It's absolutely natural. You know, you threaten to kick a dog and it'll scowl and run away. Doesn't need a self to look after itself. So don't hit your head on the wall.
Not me, just me. It's a lot of like resistance when I hear all of this. So I don't know.
No, well, you probably overdosed because you had an hour and a half yesterday and an hour and a half today. It's probably too much. Give yourself a break.
Okay.
Lovely to see you, though.
Thank you. Lovely to see you too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I remember that frustration. This was endlessly frustrating for Tim, trying to work this message out, trying to work it out. I spent years and years, a lot of years, and I went from one teacher to another, thinking, all right, I've got that from them, but there was, you know, I haven't got it all. So I just kept. That's the seeking energy, because it says I can work it out. I can't emphasize enough that Tim didn't work it out. Tim didn't solve the riddle. Tim didn't see the secret, the open secret. He didn't find it. He didn't solve the puzzle. He didn't have a revelatory experience when all the truth was revealed. The whole message is, there is nothing. You're not going to get anything. You're not going to find anything. Everything is already absolutely clear. This couldn't be more clear. Whatever is going on is the entirety. It's all of it. There is simply no more. Whatever you're hoping to get, you will not get. I mean, this is just about bursting every bubble that you've ever blown up your own arse. That's a lovely turn of phrase. This is about bursting all of your bubbles, whatever fantasy you've got. If I could, I'd come round with a fucking great pin and burst a lot of them. Because your bubbles or your fantasies about how, you know, whoever you've heard is having a wonderful time, has found some incredible state. This is not talking about any state, any experience. It's talking about all experience, all states, all thoughts, all emotions, everything, absolutely no exclusions. So what you've said is going on for you that is not good enough right now, that is it. This is it. No more, no less. You're never getting any closer or further away. That's the miracle, that's the wonder. In this story of Tim simply stopped traveling. Tim simply stopped. And in the stopping wasn't even recognized. There was no one to notice that the stopping had stopped, or the the traveling. And I know you want something spectacular. You want, you want fireworks. If fireworks happen, then fireworks are this. If depression happens, depression is this. There is no exception. And fireworks are not better than depression, just preferable. And of course, being compassionate, I would wish fireworks rather than depression. But there's no escape from what is. What is just as it is. That's the whole message. That's why it can sound harsh. And you could try to do some work on acceptance or surrender. There's lots of paths to what is, So they sound like this message, and then they say what you could do to accept, to be in a state of acceptance, to be in a state of surrender. Well, fucking hell. Like you haven't worked hard enough already. Just give yourself some, endless more really hard work to do, because there's no harder work than acceptance or surrender. If you've tried it, if you tried that, that is some heavy shit work. That's like digging a big hole, and there's, and then told to keep digging because you're not fully surrendered yet. There'll be no end to that work. So rather than giving you more work, this is a redundancy package. You can lay down your tools, all of them, and put your feet up on the couch. Get someone else to make you a cup of tea and bring you a packet of your favorite biscuits. And lie there until you fall into oblivion, which we're calling the bliss of deep sleep. And some people have the cheek to say this isn't a compassionate message. There you go. There's I've given you homework. That's pretty good as homework goes. And of course, don't get me wrong, that won't bring you closer to this. It's just very, very pleasant. There is something very odd I'll leave you with, which is without self, there is great self-compassion. How paradoxical is that? Because you are your own worst enemy. You are the one. So no, the absence of self is hugely compassionate towards self. Well, you wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have at all. So the loss of self is no loss. None at all. Well, thanks very much for coming, everyone. I think I've overemphasized the emptiness. I got on that early and then I couldn't get off it. But there we are. Empty and full are not two, so it's fine. I was really talking about the fullness when I was, stuck on the empty. So lovely to see you all. Thanks very much for coming. If you'd like to make a donation, then they're very gratefully received via PayPal at http://paypal.me/Tim Cliss. I've nearly learnt it. So yeah, if you'd like to give a donation, that you're more than welcome to do so. And thanks very much, everyone, for coming. It's interesting because I'm enjoying doing this more and more. And I kind of feel guilty. There's no one to feel guilty, but I kind of feel guilty how much I'm enjoying it. Like a guilty pleasure, like listening to like listening to ABBA on my own.
I was listening to ABBA just before the meeting. I was
Yeah, well,
learning to
that's
play.
yeah, but you don't even feel you're not even guilty about that, Darren. You're just brazen in your love of ABBA.
I was actually learning to play it on guitar. SOS.
I just wondered who I could say as my guilty music pleasure. I'm not really guilty of that. I've got one that's better. I've just got Erasure's greatest hits, and I'm indoctrinating my son with the wonder of Erasure. And if you've not played Erasure lately, don't get me wrong, it's crass, it's terribly gay. You can't, if you start dancing, you dance in a terribly effeminate 1980s fashion, which I'm teaching my son presently. And he's going to go to his first school disco, and he's going to think he's the coolest one there because I tell him he is. And he's going to dance as if he's in a 1981 Top of the Pops music video, dancing to Erasure. And he's going to get murdered. He's going to get crucified. I can't wait for that to happen. Oh, I'm joking. He'll have to go to another dance tutor before the first school disco. But yeah, he's actually put 2 Erasure tracks on his own Alexa playlist. He has his own playlist on Alexa now. And he's got 2 Erasure tracks on it. I'm so proud. All right, lovely to see everyone. Take care. And
thank you.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ciao. All the best.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Hopefully see you on Monday.
Oh, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, team. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.